In this week's Memes and Machines, we dive into the top 100 generative AI apps. What can we learn from this surprising list? Too many people are talking about generative AI and not enough are talking about predictive AI. What is the difference? We dive into psychological principles that influence our behaviors online. We speak about the creator dilemma, brand deals, delivering them in an authentic way. We explain what the 4.6 review is and how that is creating a trust dilemma. We dive into conspiracy theories, Telegram, AI. The world is going crazy right now. And finally, we conclude with algorithm tips for Instagram, for LinkedIn, for Threads, the app that everyone used to talk about. It doesn't talk about, but I'm talking about again. And then Chris invented the word binfluencer. What the hell is a binfluencer? I don't know, but I love the word.
Get the hell out of that nonsense. Because those binfluencers, no idea how to grow your account. They're only doing it for their own selfish gain.
What's the best time to post a video? Once you've made the video.
Yes.
Sit back, grab a cold beverage from the fridge and relax, because you're now locked into the sounds of memes and machines.
Memes and machines. Fellas, good to see you both. How you doing?
Perfect, thank you.
All right, but not had as much sun as you.
The sun is shining outside of my room.
I have had a few days in Ibiza. I'm feeling fresh. I found a new passion for paddle. Absolutely addicted. Spent 2 to 3 days of paddling and e-foiling. I have the bug, so I'm going to have to move somewhere sunny, find an ocean, find a paddle court, and I think life will be complete.
The only problem is I've heard sun's bad for the hairline, so you better watch out for that, mate. You better watch out for that.
I will not contribute to these vicious rumours. I will not speculate. Chaps, I have a wonderful conversation for us to dive into this week. A16Z have published a report of the top 100 generative AI companies in the world. And this report is extremely comprehensive. There are obvious players from ChatGPT, Perplexity, and beyond, but there are so many companies on there that I have never heard of, which is rather telling of where we are in the AI evolution race. Chris, do you want to give us a bit of a breakdown of some of your observations and what you thought of this report?
Yes, mate. It was super surprising to me. The last one I saw was like 12, 13 months ago, and it looked nothing like this list. So that's the first observation I had, is just how much has changed in the last year alone. The other big observation I had was the desktop and the mobile apps do not align whatsoever. In fact, some of the most popular desktop ones don't even appear on the mobile apps one, and vice versa. Those that are just an AI app do not generally have a desktop presence. So that was another thing that I noticed. But
quickly on that, Chris, what are the categories? Break us through what are kind of the categories that fall
the
under AI?
The way that they've categorized it is interesting. So it's good that you mentioned that. So unique monthly visits is the desktop version, and I guess then they're measuring web traffic. So that's a interesting point. But then monthly active users is the mobile apps version. So that's not unique visits. That's specifically unique active users. So LinkedIn, for example, has 1 billion users registered, but it only has 220 active users per month on LinkedIn. So million, that is. So big difference in terms of overall user base versus active user base. And so that's something to note. But yeah, it's just crazy. Like, it's getting kind of spurious even. What is an AI app? Because the second top mobile one is Microsoft Edge.
Yeah.
But that's a browser, right? Like,
what do you think that is, Chris?
I think it's just because everything is going to have AI in it soon. So this will soon just be a representation of the top 50 apps. not AI apps, but just apps, because they'll have AI built into them and therefore call themselves AI apps. So right now we're in this like weird zone where there are purely AI apps in this list, but then eventually everything will have some sort of AI in it. Although one thing I wanted to segue and talk about is one of the big tool creators called Procreate recently came out and said, I will never put generative AI inside of Procreate. And he made a hard stance against AI, and it's the first big tech company I've seen make such a bold statement like that. I've seen other brands like Dove and others saying that they won't use AI and not be on social media and stuff, but that's not a tech company making that statement. That's like an offline retail company that sells physical products. So that's very different.
That feels like the oddest statement to make for a technology company.
It really does, right?
Dove's part of their DNA. They've always been about authenticity and celebrating unfiltered faces, and they've been kind of playing their whole campaign and brand architecture has been led around the opposite of the polished product, the perfect, the Photoshop. So they've always been against it. So them taking a stance around image generation makes all the sense in the world, right?
Yeah.
Like I get that. A technology company saying the biggest technological revolution maybe ever, or one of them, and they go, you know what, we're not getting involved. That just feels odd. I don't know why.
It does, doesn't it? In fact, I saw a lot of comments saying this is their blockbuster moment. A lot of people think that they're just not keeping up with the times and therefore it's going to disappear rather rapidly in like the Netflix blockbuster type stuff. What's interesting is he said ever. He didn't say in the short term or until, regulation comes in. He said, no, we will never put AI inside of our app. So that's automatically now split the user base as to, I need to get off of this app because it's not going to keep up with the times.
Yeah.
Or I'm really happy about this because I'm an artist and I never want my stuff trained on. Because Adobe's had the other side of the coin. Adobe said, we'll put AI in everything, but that comes with the downside of your stuff that you upload there can be trained into a database without your permission or without your consent, or without your, anything. No royalty.
You just explain what Procreate is, Chris. It's like a drawing app, right?
Yeah, it's like a motion design app. And the kind of irony about all of it is that no doubt they've used loads of different like machine learning techniques and stuff inside of the app. So it's like already got quite a lot of like, AI basis in it. But what they're saying is we're never going to use artist stuff to generate stuff for other users in Procreate, basically. So everyone got a little bit peeved about 2 weeks ago when everybody's terms and conditions just changed one day and you wouldn't be able to sign back into that app unless you agreed to the new ones. And in all of the new terms and conditions, it said, by the way, anything you upload to our platform, we have the rights to make copies of it. We have the rights to train it into a large language model. We have the rights to do all of this stuff that they didn't previously have. So a lot of people then were just like, I need to either move away from this or be okay with it.
Do you think that's a problem? I don't really care, to be honest. Because this is what Adobe. I assumed Adobe fall under this because this all came out on X, like I don't know, it was a month or so ago when they updated some terms and conditions. They reworded something around the fact that it wasn't to do with generative AI, but more so that if you any of your in there is could potentially be used for marketing and promotional material. But I actually saw someone from Adobe who was kind of fighting back on X, saying that these terms have been there for 12 years, and actually they had just adjusted some wording in there, and the actual premise of the term hadn't changed at all. And now everyone is saying, "Oh yeah, fuck Adobe," how could they do this? I was just thinking, Ned, just shut the fuck up. Have they actually gone and used the work? Like, are they actually how many individuals have in that conversation? I didn't find a single individual in that conversation that put their hand up and went, they have used my work, based off of this term. I think people just love to complain at corporate organizations when they try and add these sort of controlling sort of terms, like we own part of your stuff and we can do whatever we want with it. But do they actually go and do whatever they want with it? How many cases are there where You know, oh, there's a billboard over there, and that, oh shit, that's my photo that I created on Photoshop 6 months ago. Like, I really just don't think companies act like that, to be honest.
People's specific issue with the Adobe one was the loose language they used. It was kind of lawyer talk to say, you know, we are potentially going to do this, but we may not necessarily. And the fact that people were then filling in the blanks and guessing what this could mean is bad play on Adobe's part. You know, they need to make it really transparent and obvious what it actually meant. And I agree, like, none of these terms and conditions are that new, as in, like, most of them have preceded this AI stuff. They're just now adjusting the language to make it AI relevant, I guess.
It's not that deep, though.
Maybe not.
It's not that deep.
Not.
Like, just get on with creating.
Yeah, this is reminiscent of, you know, when everyone would make conspiracy theories that Facebook is listening to them. And I used to argue with people all the time because
they are.
No, they are listening to you, but they're not using that information to serve you ads. And I can tell you why. It's not because there's not a moral reason not to do that. I promise you there's not a moral reason not to do that, because everyone signed their permissions to give access to audio, to video, to everything. That's part of the application. The real reason they don't do it is because it's not the most effective thing. It's not the most effective way to understand my preferences, my wants, my needs and desires. What I do is more relevant to show you what I like and want over what I say. Like, imagine Meta's listening to this conversation. The ability to kind of work out what's being said and understand the contextual relevance of, like, jokes and random things and words. Are things said in a positive way or a negative way? You know, pick any piece of language is not the best. It's not the best use of technology, and it certainly wasn't 5 years ago. It definitely wasn't 10 years ago. And the debate would always be, well, it's listening to me. And to be honest, it was always confirmation bias. You would go, well, I had a conversation with my friend about houses and I'm getting served ads about houses. I go, but how many times did that used to happen? And you just don't pay attention. It's purely confirmation bias. Yeah. What I will say now is, now the genie's out of the bottle, where the ability to rationalize audio, the ability to use image and facial recognition is actually now becoming useful in a generative world. There's two parts of AI. Everyone's talking about Gen AI right now. There's another field of AI, which is predictive AI, which is actually probably more meaningful in the world, and is used to determine algorithms, social algorithms. It's being used to predict weather patterns. It's been used in healthcare to look for markers that could indicate that there's a problem down the road. Predictive AI is actually more fascinating, but it's not as sexy, because the creative arts, media, people, the creative economy, everyone's got hold of generative AI. But predictive AI is probably a space that I'm starting to get more interested in, because it's more useful in the real world. Like,
yeah, you're right. That's a good segue back to the top tools. There's not very many predictive tools in there at all, are there? And all of the big ones, like Google's deep and stuff, they've been sort of under the radar working with, like, massive health companies, especially to do protein folding and cancer prediction and all that sort of stuff you're talking about. I even heard a recent one that an AI company is going to be able to tell you by your cough what illnesses and symptoms you likely have. So you're just going to have to
solve that.
It's pretty cool, isn't it? Like, I love little stories like that, because it, you know, when you think about it, what would you have to do? You'd have to register for an NHS doctor's appointment. You'd have to wait 7 days to get that, probably. You'd have to show up, and then they'd have to have infinite knowledge about coughs and all of these respiratory problems, and a database like the internet in the doctor's head. It's like, it's not even possible via a doctor to get that sort of diagnosis. So that's next level for me. I also saw another really cool story where a guy paid to get his blood work done, and then he got this, like, 50-page report on all of the things that his blood work identifies. So he booked in, like, a thing with his doctor to explain all of the jargon that he just paid to receive. And instead, he uploaded it to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT gave him those insights within 5 minutes. Even told him a health plan, even told him how to, you know, alleviate the spike in insulin via taking these foods that are less sugar intensive. It was insane. So
what about GPs though?
So a GP.
What about GPs? What about them? What about their jobs? What about their future?
Well,
what about, we can't use that. We can't use that because what about their future?
Should be for better things. That's what I'm saying. Is like GPs would have a lot less waiting times if there wasn't a million old people trying to get their blood work explained to them.
Don't be hating on old people, Chris. We're getting there. By the way, this is a bit of an adjacent point, but it's relevant. So my friend went and used the first... There's a health company called Nico Health. It's basically the co-founder of Spotify's new venture. And it's been launched in Scandinavia. And think of these as vertically stacked healthcare. It's all about putting preventative healthcare at the forefront of the NHS and our healthcare systems, because right now we have a system that treats problems. The reality is 90% of diseases and ailments can be prevented. So if you can make advancements in preventative healthcare, and it's the reason that we're all talking about health, well-being, morning routines, night routines, etc., is you lower your risk factors across the board. They've basically built a system. So you go into this tube, it does a full body scan, and it puts thousands of markers across your body. So if you have a mole, it's basically documenting that today. You then go out and spend 20 minutes with a consultant, and everything's logged. Imagine you do that on an annual basis. They can say, well, this mole has moved 1 inch. It's now got a 15% extra risk factor of becoming melanoma. It looks at your blood markers. It looks at your hormone levels. And the main thing is it's storing historic data, even like your respiratory system. When a doctor the GP would put the thing on your health and he's like listening. Now, all of that is monitored and stored, to your point, Chris, around the ability and all of the capabilities of generative AI and predictive AI coming together now means actually we can probably solve a lot of the health problems in the world, like at a fundamental level. The problem is governments will move slow. They're going to have a problem regulating this. Everyone will have an allergic reaction to the idea that machines will do things better than trained professionals, which they already do. Studies have shown that, the ability to screen cancers with a greater accuracy through AI tools is far greater than that of a clinician. So there's all these things happening, but the regulatory, I suppose, frameworks and that cognitive dissonance that people feel of the idea that robots were giving up all this control, I think that's going to be the real big barrier.
I would say that doctors wouldn't like being reactive all the time as well, honestly. I think they would like to have more proactive healthcare. It just makes a lot of sense. It must be quite depressing to always be reactive. Like I only ring the doctors when there's something seriously wrong. And by that time, it's already too late to do a lot of the stuff that should have been done, Like that's the whole idea of it. Like vets are the same. This could be applied to basically all healthcare. One of the craziest things I saw recently was NHS in Manchester, I think it was using brain scans and other types of scans in order to do exactly what you said. Now, instead of moles, it was actually looking at Alzheimer points inside the brain and then giving you a 7+ year advance notice that you have the signs of incoming Alzheimer's. And what does that mean? It means you can start looking into stuff that is helping you before you get to the point where it's too far to help you. For example, like one of the pieces of advice was eat dark chocolate because dark chocolate passes blood past the blood-brain barrier, which helps to get, like certain things to healthy up your brain. Now, eating dark chocolate after you've already got an Alzheimer's diagnosis is not going to help you whatsoever. But if you got it 7 years prior to your diagnosis, it could legitimately help you.
I am going to raid the cupboard for dark chocolate now you say that.
Yeah, it's got to be really dark. Like
validation.
It can't be less than that.
What about a little bit of milk, a little bit of dark? Can I mix it up? Saying?
Well, yeah, there's just certain things like, there's just all these things that you can now unlock that when you have a proactive approach are legitimate, but they're not legitimate in a reactive approach to anything. And
okay.
this is a deeper point though. It could go about everything. Think about like, regulation. Should it be reactive or proactive? That's a big argument right now in the AI space. Should we wait for something insanely bad to happen before it all gets regulated, or should we do that ahead of time? That's what the EU is saying. We're going to do that ahead of time. And everyone else is going, we're going to wait for something major to happen and then we'll enforce that can't happen again.
Classic EU dropping the ball. They say America is very much legislate after the fact. EU is prevent innovation, put safeguards in place, never get off the ground. Yeah, it puts Europe at a real disadvantage in the AI race. Do we think China is going to regulate their way to being third place? Absolutely not. No. Is the USA? Absolutely not. So it doesn't make sense, and that's one of the dangerous factors, right? I saw a video, and I think it was at the developer conference where one of the lead developers at OpenAI, they were showing now how ChatGPT is integrated into video, and he was interacting, and it's what was most impressive to me. Like a year ago, I remember seeing this kind of novel automation stack where a creator had pieced together ChatGPT, created a custom GPT of a celebrity, had basically then linked that to 11 Labs to synthesize a voice, used a webcam to take a picture every 3 seconds, and it gave the impression that it was reacting in real time. So you had this kind of little bit of latency, but it was kind of novel and fun. And I was blown away at that point going, oh, in the future, you're going to be able to access an API to interact with your favorite celebrities. But in my mind, it was always in the future. It was in the future. I watched this video. This is just, less than a year later, and there was zero latency. He was interacting in real time on camera. He got hold of a book and said, read this page, pulled the book up and said, give me a summary of what's happening here. Sure. Start saying, in this page, it describes X, Y, and Z. And you go, the speed of evolution is wild, which kind of ladders back to the point around 90% of these companies that are the top 100 generative AI companies today barely existed a year ago, right? That's the point. So it's this wild gold rush happening right now. If you're a marketing company, or if you're a brand right now, what the hell do you do if we can't keep up? People that pay very close attention to what's happening, what do you do? What's your advice for marketeer, startup marketeer, brand marketeer? How the hell do you keep up? Oh, you don't, right? Your silence is like,
I'm even going to go in, Ben. I feel bad.
Sorry, yeah, I was
too much.
Well, I was just going to say, you just pay people like me and Chris to help you keep up. Simple as that.
Yeah, you really.
Well, you can just create lists of because I guess this is relevant to what I do and what Chris is doing, in that the boom in the tool market, SaaS, AI tools, everything is now birthed this whole wave of influencers, creators, curators that are just now sharing news, testing, they're really not the traditional influencer that existed 5 years ago that was just lifestyle, where it's now just news influencers, or news creators, right? That now are it's their job to be on the ball with what is coming out. Something comes out this morning that's really fucking hot. These creators have set up news funnels to make sure they know when it's come out and they share that information. Problem is that then you don't have to question the due diligence of some of these, and me and Chris have talked about this, due diligence of some of these news influencers, and where they just share anything, or whether they actually go and test it and go, oh no, this is actually good.
Yeah.
Oh no, everybody's saying it's good, so it must be good. Or no, is it actually good? Because everybody that's saying it's good might also just have the same way of doing stuff, where they just say it's good for views, for impressions. If I show you the top 10 examples, everyone's going, wow, that's amazing. But actually, when I go and use it, that takes me 100 attempts to get one of those top 10 examples. That's the problem that I'm coming under. So like for a marketeer and a person, it's actually really difficult keeping up, because it's hard finding trusted individuals that are like creating like content on, you know, what is the best and what's actually useful versus what's just looks cool like from the outside, and will get them views but isn't actually that useful. And you know, there aren't a huge amount of creators / influencers in this space that I think are creating honest content around AI tools.
Because they're news channels, Ben. That's my issue with it right now.
Yeah.
Is that these guys make an income through full-time making stuff about news. You know, they're not actually creative directors, they're not film directors, they're not advertising experts, they're not marketing experts. They are YouTubers that are trying to get your attention by saying every big claim under the sun. You know, everything I see is like, Flux is the Mid-Journey killer. No, it's not. It's not even close. And then all of these other like claims like this really start to annoy me. And then I start to gravitate towards those that I really do trust. And I noticed it's the ones that don't have a paid incentive to make these claims. You know, it's like film directors that go, look, this is a new tool I just introduced to my workflow. If you work in film like me, you may also want to check it out. I've got no affiliation, no incentive to tell you this. It's just saved me loads of time. Bang, there you go. Like, it's very hard to get that sort of like independent news from people that their entire revenue depends on, can they get your clicks? Will they get your headline? And how much will that company pay me under the table to talk about their crappy tool?
Yeah, it's conflating followers with real influence.
Yes.
And I think we don't make those distinctions strongly enough. And it's difficult, right? Because we live in a world of recommendation engines.
Totally.
There's a psychological principle called the Asch paradigm. I don't know if you're familiar, but it fundamentally means that the individual almost always goes along with the majority group. So you imagine at any given time when new tool comes out and every news aggregator in the space, because that's what they are, they're news curators, says, this is the next image generator that you have to pay attention to. This is the next AI video editor you have to pay attention to. You're in an echo chamber. And what you effectively get is people's feeds are flooded with the majority group. So suddenly you have these hype cycles that aren't predicated on anything other than a coordinated, not intentionally, there's no conspiracy theory here. It's just the incentive models of modern day social influence. They are driving the momentum, and it just makes it like impossible for anyone to keep up. It really does.
It's everything, right? Like, I don't know if you're okay with talking about this, Ben, but I'm seeing a lot of YouTubers sponsored by InVideo right now. And I feel, oh, wow, this is amazing. I got to go check out this B-roll tool. It could save me so much time. Everyone talks so highly of it. It seems like the best one ever. I go and try it, and it's absolutely dog shit. Like, I have not used a worse AI tool in my time in AI yet than this tool. It just doesn't do anything like what you expect it to do, and yet everyone talks so highly of it because they're paid, because these guys are doing a lot of outreach and stuff like that, you know. And that's another way to sort of control the narrative about how good your tool is by everyone that gets news cycles to talk positively of it, because you paid them to talk positively about it, you know.
Yeah, I think with video and tools like that, I think you're right. Like, people are being paid, and you know, I've been paid to promote that tool. And like, you kind of only, as an influencer, from my perspective, you see all of everybody talking how good it is. And I think what I do, maybe not enough of, and what a lot of influencers do, is that they'll use it, make a conclusion that, yeah, this seems all right, good enough. But then when you really use it, like on an actual, like how an actual user would use it every day, you then start to find like more holes in the tool. And you're like, actually, from the outside, this looked more useful. When I spent 2 or 3 hours using it, all right. But then when you spend longer, you're like, actually. But then at that point, you've probably already signed the contract. You know, these companies have a lot of money, not going to lie. And who's me to sort of like even though, you know, some of these tools aren't great, a lot of them aren't great. You know, we're still in the development of these tools, and, you know, they're not perfect. So I think that also plays a factor in, and it does for me, in an influencer being okay to promote it on the basis that there's an understanding that this is still new technology and it's not perfect, and it's maybe not that usable today, but it's there.
It has huge
Rather than
potential.
Yeah, so it's because that's what I look at when because I've done a few AI tool sponsored deals, and I do try and just pick ones that I think are, you know, near the front of being the best developed, and I still use them. And, you know, they're not, even I did one for LTX Studio recently. I've done 2 for them, and I did that because I think the platform's interesting. I think it's a new way of doing stuff. I think nobody is doing things like that before. And like, some of their inbuilt features are not perfect, they're not great, but I know that, like, the foundation is there, and so they will get better. And I actually don't know what everybody's use case is. Some people might be happy as a beginner creator with, because you're Chris, you're looking at it from, like, you know, you've used everything, or like you've used the best tools, used the worst tools, so you go, this is really shit. However, like, I look at it like a beginner creator who doesn't really know what's good and what's shit will look at it and go, well, this can save me time, because I'm having real issues at the moment in creating content because it's really time consuming.
Very true,
I can do a text prompt and it creates this video, and actually we look at it and go, well, that is so fucking shit. But actually, from their perspective, I've managed to create a video in 10 minutes and it would take me 2 hours. And actually, the 2-hour attempt is just as shit as the 10-minute attempt. And so that's kind of the way that I see it, is that actually, we've talked about this before on another episode, in that actually, I think a lot of these AI tools aren't good enough yet to really appeal to the more advanced creators. And actually, the appeal is more to the beginner creators, because they're kind of on par with the content that they already create.
That's a very
good breakdown. I look at it. But yeah, it kind of is like this whole influencer space of these AI tools is paralleled with tech. You know, people have always complained about, okay, you've been paid to do a review. Well, that's why Marques Brownlee always says he's never taken on a sponsored video for a review, because then it's not a review, it's a bias where you can't say this, you can't give your honest opinion on what's shit about the tool. And I can't do that in a paid influencer video on AI, so I can't say, this is really shit. But if I make a video like that's not paid, I will put in more of my comments to try and bring back some integrity to me that I may have lost by sharing a tool where I've not been truly transparent and honest about, because I'm simply not allowed to. So in other tools where I've done Midjourney and Flux and that recently, I sort of called out, people are saying this is the Midjourney killer, but, you know, I want to find out whether it actually is. Conclusion at the end of the video, Flux is sometimes giving me good results in one area, Midjourney is another. Both of these tools in very early stages of development, still lots more room to improve. Like, just a very passive look. I'm aware these aren't perfect. Like just a sweeping statement. You know, people go, okay, yeah, he's not like, because the problem is with a lot of people, like on LinkedIn especially, this is a game changer. This is a game changer. No, it's not a fucking game changer. Like, I've just used it. There's this one woman, I won't say who it is, but she does it all the time. All the time. I see her every
letters as well, because that's what I
don't know what she writes out, because it just pisses me off.
Absolute game changer.
Yeah, well, there's a one woman and then a few guys as well that like any new tool that comes onto the market, game changer. I'm like, have you actually tested this, or like No, they haven't tested it. Where are your examples? Right, that's what the gripe that I have is, you're going to do a post about this tool, stop sharing everybody else's examples and share your own. Share your own, because if it's a game changer, that means you've used it, and should have your own examples. If you're not showing me your own examples, I don't trust you.
Well, the problem, what you're describing there, Ben, just before you went on your hatred for people that have void fellow opinions, is the creator dilemma. You know, you're presented with a commercial opportunity, an incentive that says, I should promote this product or service. And how many creators over the last decade have struggled with that dilemma? Would I drive this car? Would I really? I think for longevity, though, you have to have a I suppose, a framework in which you say, yes, I will contribute to this. And it may be that when you work with a tool, you say to the brand, like, I am going to be honest about this. Like, I might not go all in if I don't agree with something, but I think it gives you more credibility if I say aspects where the limitations of the product or the service or the tool. And I think that gives you more credibility. And over time, you build the authority and confidence to have those conversations with brands in a way where maybe earlier on in your creator career, you wouldn't do. But I think long term, you have to preserve your audience. I spoke to Steve about this with Diary of a CEO. You'd be very surprised by how many episodes he deletes.
Right.
Like, he deletes a lot. Imagine you've invited someone in, they've flown across, and if he doesn't believe the episode meets the standards and the authority that he has given to the audience, he doesn't drop them. And I'm talking like giant celebrities he's not put out. You would not believe some of the people he's spent time with recording, just gone, the conversation was boring, I'm not doing it. And every other creator in the world would just go, you know what, I'm putting it out, big name. He goes, no, I'm going to preserve the integrity of the audience. Number one. That is number one. And you can agree with people, or you can have an opinion on the guest or the context or how interesting it is. But I will say with certainty, he has preserved that at all costs. And it's one of the things that helps him stand out. And I think you, as a creator that has authority over so many aspiring creators, video editors, marketeers, I think the best thing you could do is say no to a lot of stuff. I think your bag gets bigger over time as well.
I was totally going to say that. It's actually a great hark back to the last episode. It's lazy, right? It's laziness on the behalf of the brand. It's laziness on behalf of the creator. It's both of them being lazy, because the creator's thinking short-term monetization, and this is where all my revenue comes from. And the brand's thinking, we need to have them only talk positive things about us. And they're not confident enough or have assurance enough to let a creator be truly like, this is the downside of our platform. They won't let them make that content. It comes with all this red tape, and that's brands being lazy and not wanting to know this person's reason for existence is authority. And that's how they gained an audience. So you can't just go wiping that away instantaneously because you want a brand deal or you want to push your product. And honestly, it comes off like really badly to most people these days. Like, if everything you say about your product is just positive, it's almost a massive red flag, right? Like, it's like saying we've got no ideas to grow, or this is not our roadmap. They're not mentioning any of that. They're just going, we're the best, better than all the rest.
Chris, on that point, there's actual studies that the 4.6 Amazon review is always better than the 5-star Amazon review.
100%. 5 is dodgy as hell, man.
I never go to 5. I go 3. Threes.
5 is
Threes.
dodgy as hell.
Because ones are people who just, the thing's broken, and I'm like, fair. 5s are just the people that just gaslight anything and everything.
Yeah.
And then the 3s, or the 3, I usually go 3s and 4s.
We're not talking about what you do in a club, Ben, at the end of the night. We're talking about product reviews.
Hey, Jay, I've got one for you, right? Think about this. There's a meme on the internet where there's a guy pointing towards like 5 stars reviewed with 300 brackets. So, only 300 people have reviewed this with 5 stars. And it's like, I think it's Drake or someone going like, not sure about that. But then there's one with like 4.6 stars with 50,000 reviews. And he's like pointing at it going, yeah, that's the one. That's the great meme for that, segment of the episode, basically, because it's so true. Like, the more reviews at the more, 500 people you could have paid. Easily, you could have known 500 people, right? You could have botted it. You could have faked it. You could have paid influencers to do this. You could have paid your staff members, your family members. Everybody's got like 500 people that they could contact. Nobody has 20,000+ reviews at 4.6 stars that they can fake it with. So it's just about transparency.
It's only going to get worse as well when you think of this. What we're describing here is a mistrust of establishment. We are a skeptical generation, and we should be, because we've been lied to through the media. We have been shilled products and services that people don't care about because of the creator economy. Our worlds are geared by algorithms. We should be mistrusting. There's Edelman do a study every year called the Trust Barometer. And you basically see every single sector in decline around trust, if you look over the last 10 years, from telecoms through to advertising to banking, and obviously the context of the world shifts. Technology is at the lowest trust it's ever been compared to what it has been historically. We've always held the technology sector on a higher moral pedigree. You know, they're a little more left-leaning. They're probably a little more empathetic. I think all the nefarious stories and how much, I suppose, capitalism's injected into technology and conflates with technology. Well,
It's the
less
recent
trusting.
scams too, isn't it? Sam Bankman-Fried, the Forbes 30 under 30 lists, you know. Then we had Cambridge Analytica and social media. Then we had all of the banks collapsing because of the financial crisis, you know. All of these are things we've experienced, and that's why we're so jaded.
So think of now in a world where you don't know what is real and fake. Like the
AI
generative AI, oh God, like how skeptical are we going to be? We're all going to be Ben. We're all going to be going after 3-star reviews because they're the only products and services we trust. We're never going to trust the 4.6.
I tell you what, though, we needed this level of skepticism going into AI, didn't we? Could you imagine if we were all just like absolutely believing everything we were told? We would be doomed.
Well, it's happening on Facebook. It's happening on Facebook now. There's a big problem with generative images on Facebook around less digitally savvy generations, you know, the boomers and beyond. They're just trusting anything. I look at my nan on Facebook and she'll just click on anything. She's got, you know, five admirers across in America messaging her that are probably based out of Zimbabwe or something, like, you know, asking her for a PIN code. Like, there's so much of that happens on Facebook because...
Of course it does.
Because you don't know
on the vulnerable, and who's the most vulnerable is the elderly.
100%, and that's dangerous. That's the bit where I go, I feel uneasy. I saw my nan was showing me like generated images that were clear. They weren't even good images, by the way.
Yeah.
We're not talking, you know, the best of the best. I'm like, Nan, that's not real. She went, it is. I'm like, it's not real, I promise you.
Yeah. I'll tell you another really crazy thing, just talking on this very same subject. A YouTuber I follow a lot called Rick Beato, very good like studio musician, actually did albums for some of the most major pop bands over the last like 20 years. He says that his daughter can hear a frequency in generative music that makes her aware that it's AI generated, whereas he cannot. So actually your ears over time degrade the frequencies that you can hear in the spectrum, and so they're not picking up on this obviously AI generated voices thing, whereas his daughter knew straight away. Like within 3 seconds of hearing a song, there's like a high pitched noise within the song itself.
She could. That's
so she can notice AI, whereas he cannot. So this is another thing towards the elderly not being able to pick up on, you know, AI cues. Is literally degradation of your ear will mean that you can't hear like certain things that AI generates that kids can.
We have these conversations, and part of me is so pumped about the art of possible, and part of me just goes, "Fuck,
yeah, it's terrifying as well." Yeah.
Happen. The world's strange enough as it is. It's only going to get stranger, right?
And things are being held back right now. Prior to the American elections, SOAR is not coming out. Loads of other tools aren't coming out. Why? Because of the amount of misinformation that they can generate. But the second the election's over, the next 4 years are going to be mental, mate.
Right, all right, dudes, let's give me some conspiracy theories. Let's go down the rabbit hole. Let's put our tinfoil hats on. Chris, hit me with a conspiracy theory. You've got one, I know. You look like you got one in a glint in your eye. Give me one.
I don't want to say this because it's not something I like talking about, which is politics. But I feel like a major government will harness generative AI and trick a whole population soon.
Oh, fact. This isn't even conspiratorial.
That's pretty much a guarantee. But it's like it's going to happen a lot sooner than people realize. And like even right now, there's issues in Bangladesh I've been reading about, and the government just shut the internet off for like 4 weeks because they didn't want protesters and rioters to meet up and stuff like this. But because they have complete control over the government, over the internet, they can just shut it off like a kill switch. They could also just shut it on and change all of the AI into propaganda and do whatever they want. And that's terrifying, genuinely terrifying.
What do you think of the Telegram story, the founder?
Crazy.
Telegram.
I'm glad you brought that up, actually. Yeah, really crazy. because he is a French citizen now, even though he is actually a Russian born person. And he's being held in France and actually released this morning, but he's not allowed to leave France. And he's got so many... This goes great into free speech and X, and why X has just become an absolute cesspit of content. Because Flux stuff can just go on there without any censorship. And Telegram allowed for child pornography. It allowed for, war things. It exposed the Ukraine army. It wouldn't cooperate with any governments in order to let them know what was being messaged through the platform. So it's this idea of, well, free speech is in most countries' Bill of Rights, but also allowing terrorists and sex criminals, that's completely illegal and goes against free speech.
So,
even Elon argues within the legal laws, he will let things go on X, but Telegram lets anything go, literally anything.
Where is complicated is the inconsistencies. So the whole debate is that on Telegram, nefarious acts happen, from drug dealing through to fraud, through to probably much worse, right? And the argument is that the platform is encrypted, and it's actually a big selling point for the crypto community, the anonymity. And obviously for people that want anonymity, generally be a certain type of person, right? But this idea that your privacy is sovereign, so they've encrypted the platform, and the founder says that even if he wanted to hand over information, he couldn't because of the encryption. And it's the same defense that Apple have used when security services around the world have approached them and asked for access to devices. They've said, we can't. The difference here is, this is where I'm morally conflicted, because on one hand, I go, if your selling point is encryption, and that's the reason people use you, you could make that argument. On the other hand, if I created a website and sold drugs on there, I am accountable for that, right? No matter, even if I wasn't doing it, but people that were using the website was, we would all say that is wrong. There's no one would go, that is acceptable. Or, even if you agree with it.
Into AI tools, because are the AI tools responsible for the misinformation then?
100%. And this is like the big modern tech dilemma that's going on right now. Yeah. You have these conflating narratives, which is privacy versus transparency. They're at odds. Privacy and transparency. Sorry. You have ethics, you have opportunity of AI versus risk. They're at odds. There's so many of these kind of juxtaposed forces working against each other that it just means there aren't very simple solutions to any of this stuff. No. It's all incredibly complex and nuanced.
I'll give you another little interesting report I read this morning. Mark Zuckerberg admitted to taking 20 million posts down from COVID-related misinformation due to the American government's asking and request of doing so. And he actually regrets doing it. He regrets caving into the government and letting that information...
That's part of his rebrand. He's trying to be cool again.
The MMA character.
Zuck does not regret that at all. He just wants to be cool again. The guy wants to be cool. Get away.
Oh, it's funny, right?
Yeah. Ben, give us a conspiracy theory that's happening in the creative community. What's going off?
Oh, it's not even conspiracy theories. It's just people just making up algorithm changes and this, that, and the other. That's just the main thing that happens in the creator communities is algorithm changes and speculation on what Instagram wants and what TikTok wants, and misinformation on what creators should be doing to grow.
Okay, that's cool, right? Give me your hot takes on what you're observing on Instagram and your hot takes on TikTok, because I think you're prolific on both of those platforms, so your first-hand experience will be valuable for people.
Yeah, Instagram. I find what I'm noticing at the moment is Threads is growing in popularity, and Threads is full of Instagram creators complaining through a sense of entitlement Instagram algorithms change. People don't get the views that they used to get. People aren't making money. Instagram's not paying, or Meta obviously on Instagram's not paying them because Instagram actually doesn't really pay creators at all. Everyone then complains, It's just like, well, you chose to be on this platform. You signed up for the terms and conditions. There was nothing that said that we guarantee views or we guarantee payment. And yet everybody there's a recurring theme with the people that seem entitled, and they seem to create a specific type of content, and it usually aligns with the same people complaining about AI, and they are the crybaby creatives. They are like just people that just think that, they're the best at what they do, and they deserve everything and everyone should see their art and stuff. But I just think that creators are just really bad at just blocking out the noise and just creating. They're really, really bad at it because there's so much noise on social media, like as to like, to do this. Oh, I just did this and this, that, and the other. Like I did this is not really a conspiracy theory, but it kind of is that like actually a lot of people on Instagram make those full of fucking parrots. A lot of people make videos on the upload setting. Upload setting videos are getting notorious for getting like lots of views, like and everyone says don't upload in 4K, upload in 1080, because when you upload in 4K, it degrades the quality more than the 1080 due to compression, and then the 4K version looks worse than the 1080. I don't think this is true. I've never thought this is true. And last week I had a video where I zoomed in close to some text on the 1080 version raw file. It looked blurry, so I exported it in 4K. It looked a lot better. I thought, fuck it, I'm just going to upload that to Instagram. Then that version looked clearer than my 1080 export. And I went to Threads and I went, well, why are all these parrots? Where has this like noise come from to say, you should upload in 1080 because actually Instagram says that, 4K, because they don't actually, if you upload in 4K, it doesn't actually share the video in 4K. It does convert it to 1080, but people are arguing the amount of compression on a 4K video for final quality of the video. The quality of the 4K video was higher. But it's just little things like this all the time, like little speculation. I guess they are conspiracy theories in some way of like settings, algorithms. You should, before you post a video, you should comment on 10 people's posts. And then after you post it, you should also comment. And it's just shit like that. Like people don't, the problem with people on social media, they have no fucking evidence, substantial enough evidence with statistical relevance, proper data that says, actually, I have tested this across 1,000 posts and I can say with confidence that it is this. It's like, I do this all the time and it works for me. Okay, but how many times have you not done it? Well, no, but I do this all the time and it works. Okay, well, you need to show me that you've done it for a number of posts and not done it as well to prove that it works. But you haven't done that because all you've done is, I always reply to comments because I'm actually going through this. I'm going to do a test. I don't really reply to my comments. I get people like, you should reply to your comments. I say, try replying to hundreds of comments a day. You see my inbox across all my channels. You ain't doing that, right? Yeah, but I always reply to my comments. You get 3 comments a day. That's not an issue. I'm actually trying to measure, see if how can you measure the impact of replying to comments, and like how many times do I have to reply to an individual's comment in order for them to perhaps, all I care about is watch time. So I'm thinking, okay, how many times do I have to comment back to an individual to then hope to get them to the point where they potentially will watch my video for longer, maybe on a worse video. Let's say I show.
Just on that, Ben, the reason that is the one element where I go, not because someone has just shilled the idea that commenting works. I'll tell you why my belief it works is because what social networks are trying to do is paint a predictive picture of who you like and serve you more of the things that you like. That's the fundamental role of an algorithm. So by you interacting with someone, you're strengthening your social connection, which in turn implies they're more likely to see you. So my fundamental belief is, of all the nonsense and garbage that is propagated online around creators, and it is always changing, by the way, a truth yesterday may not be a truth today, but one of them that is probably universally true is interaction with others in some form is a strong signal to the algorithm and is much more likely. It's the same with stories. if you create interactive stories that encourage someone to press a feature, they are much more likely to see you top of fold in the first 5 or 6 the next time you post, because you're effectively, with every single follower and connection, you have a score, a weighting that the algorithm is assuming you find this relevant because you're always interacting, and you'll notice it with people. I've noticed it on LinkedIn with people I dwell on. So if I read an article once, or I've looked, even people that aren't my connections, I'll notice they'll be in my feed a lot until I start ignoring them, because it's all about relevance at the time. So the comment piece, I think, as much as most people, they don't understand why it's effective. They're actually telling you the wrong reasons. Algorithmically, it makes sense, you know?
The thing I've always appreciated about the way you do all this, though, Ben, is that you say these are my observations. And
there's just no proof. There's no, like,
but that's what I'm saying.
You've
like,
just said. Yeah.
You know the example when you said someone's done something 10,000 times?
Yeah.
But what's that? A data set of one.
Yeah.
A data set of one. And what happens with your account does not happen with everyone else's account.
Yeah.
So, like, to say, look, these are the things I can give you as observations about my account is the truthful way to introduce anything, instead of making bold claims about.
Yes.
The big thing on LinkedIn is Tuesdays at 9:30 a.m. is the best times to post. According to who, though? What if you sell CEOs that are always in a Monday or Tuesday morning meeting and you'll never catch them by doing that? What if you sell to people in America in a different time zone? You know, none of that is contextualized. It's like taking generalistic doctor's advice instead of going and getting your diagnosis. You know, like no one should be getting any generalistic social media advice. You should only be going, in my observations, this is what I've noticed. And that's it.
Yeah.
You know, do with that what you want. It may help you, it may not.
Chris, I'm going to be Donald Trump and just come out and just speak facts. I'm not going to say I have no opinions. I only speak facts.
That's the problem with everyone wants facts, don't they? They don't want to go, here's my opinion. Like if I signed up to a course and they said, here's how I'm going to make you £1 million, you don't want to go, in my opinion, I think this worked for me. No, they want you to go, you go doing this, you go do that, you'll go make that money. You don't know.
I want certainty. Give me certainty. I want my six-pack in 6 days.
You can't get that. Yeah, but that's what people they speak with certainty when there's not. Because I want to go back to your point, Ollie. All right, I don't fundamentally disagree that replying to comments could lead to positive impact in terms of growth. Okay. However, that's an assumption. You haven't proven that. You've just proven it by saying that, okay, that makes sense. Because if I reply back to someone's comment, they think, oh, Ben's replied. Maybe then when I comment next time, he will also reply. That means I'm building and foster. Yes, but that's not proven, because at the end of the day, I could go, this is how I could cherry pick data from my side and say, in the last year on TikTok, year and a half, I've grown from 10,000 followers to 400,000. I don't reply to comments, barely ever. No, and I've grown that much. Yeah, right, I get too many. I reply to a first few, and then I get comments from people who just, the comments are shitty. You go on my videos, you'll barely see me reply to comments, and I've grown 400,000 followers. Yeah. And I can say, well, my no comment strategy works because perhaps I'm spending my time that I would have spent replying to comments, focusing on my ideas, my videos,
totally.
But I'm not saying that's
ghost idea. Like you can't post and ghost. What am I meant to be?
Like
social
I can
all day. Yeah, exactly. I can and I do, and it works great. I agree.
But the only
completely.
The only way for me to basically that's a data set of one. I would have to go back in time and do the opposite and say, well, I'm going to reply to every single comment and however long that takes me, and then I measure my growth.
It's like it doesn't fit the story arc that people want. If I said to you guys, I've built multiple multi-million-dollar businesses and I have a terrible morning routine, I binge on YouTube till 2 a.m., it doesn't fit the narrative.
Yeah.
The disciplined entrepreneur.
By the way, if anyone's listening to this and you're in a pod on LinkedIn and you do it in order to get comments, get the hell out of that nonsense. Those binfluencers are no idea how to grow your account. They're only doing it for their own selfish gains. So get out. It's not a good idea.
Chris.
I'd say it's the cancer to your long-term.
Put that at the start.
It's like, it's so obvious to anyone with a brain cell that you've got a bunch of people that aren't even relevant to you commenting nonsense like great post, thumbs up. What does that mean? There's no.
So you're an advocate for the engagement pod. You're
No,
big
I'm
into
an advocate for ignoring anyone that thinks they're a good idea. The binfluencers, I call them, of LinkedIn. There's thousands.
I like that.
So back to my point originally. So before we went on this sort of commenting, I'm actually going to be more proactively commenting, replying in the next month or so to see my account views are pretty stable at the moment. So I'm actually going to see like, is there any way that I can look at the impact of that on my account? Okay, yeah, I get more comments now, but is more comments? I mean, there's still too many variables because I can't create the same piece of content in a month's time as I can today. So I want to just measure
why it doesn't make sense on TikTok to me, because you don't know people's job titles. The thing to do on LinkedIn is to comment on people's comments who you want to work with. If they say director of marketing at Heinz, of course you're going to re-comment on that comment because by doing that, then your stuff gets shown to their algorithm a lot more consistently. By doing it to Davey40909_, it's like, how do I know that's worth my time re-commenting? They could be anyone by that username. There's no identification of who the relevancy of this is to buying from me or anything like that. So just to comment for comment's sake on someone that you don't even know is an ideal buyer, to me, is a waste of time. But if they are an ideal buyer, of course, build those bridges towards that profile because you want your stuff to show up more regularly at the top of their home feed.
Yeah, but yeah, I completely agree. But then the way that I look at it is if me replying back to one of their comments builds a connection by 10%, and that extra 10% makes them watch, instead of watching 10 seconds of my next video, they watch 17, and that's a plus. And then at scale, then my video then get pushed out more. I reach more people, more growth, more opportunities. So that is kind of what I'm trying again, but you can't prove that with data.
And what you're saying there, Ben, is like really interesting. You're right around. It's like, should everybody be pursuing optimizing? These are like marginal gains, or should you just try and make better content that's valuable?
Yes. Fucking, that's all I say to be.
Just make better content.
The answer is yes.
What's the bigger win?
No, optimizing content. I say this to people all the time, and it's easier said than done. I said, all you need, they say, Ben, how do I grow? What do I need to do? I said, all you need to do is just figure out how to make better videos. That you are a content creator. You make videos. Figure out how to make, what I say is you need to figure out how to make videos that your audience actually want to watch. Like, that is all you have to figure out. And that has many pieces, scripting, ideas, filming, editing, all of those things. But fundamentally, this is your audience. How do I make videos that they want to watch? And if you do that, you will grow over time. Simple as that.
By the way, this massive trend. Comedians, they all hire producers and community managers and social managers because none of them want to do any of those three roles because they know that distracts them from being funny.
The craft.
Yeah, famous people, they're all hiring like PR managers, influencer managers because they don't want to have to manage their social because it feels like they affects their mental health. They have worse performance. Fighters, everyone, every major sports person, every major celebrity, every major comedy podcast, everybody's now tuning out of, I need to manage my own social and do it all myself because it's distracting. It affects their mental health. They're not actually benefiting from it. And like you said, Ben, the only true way to test this, by the way, is if somehow in an alternative universe, TikTok let you repost the exact same 500 posts you were going to post and then do comments and see them.
And it showed to exactly the same people.
Yeah, exactly.
There's too many variables. Like, it's impossible to test it. And it pisses me off when you get these studies from brands. Oh, we've measured over 100,000 data and actually this is the best time to post. Well, no, because every account is so different. Like the mixture of people in your audience, the demographics, the country. 7 p.m. is the best time to post. In what fucking geo?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, in what geo is? Oh yeah, because that's when people are having their dinner. Well, what my audience are in India, my audience are in the US, my audience in the UK. Oh, well, whichever one's the most. I've got 30% in US. I've got 20% in the UK. I have 20% in India. So when is the best time to post for me? I have to do that testing myself. But again, testing by
Wisdom.
myself is too hard. It's like just
taking-
make the video and post the video.
Too, though, isn't it? If you're a great copywriter and you enjoy it and it's not distracting, then by all means, if you think it's helping, do it. But like you said, you're a great content creator, videographer, and that's your focus. Like, I would argue that if you'd spent 10% less time in making videos on commenting, the distractions and the noise and all of that, well, you would have grown less. You wouldn't have grown
agree.
more, you'd have grown less.
Potentially, because you get into bickers as well with people, and then you have
Hopefully, yeah.
conversations, and like, because I've seen a few people actually say that one good commenting strategy is to go back with a question. I'm going to test this out. Because then you get them to come back. But then I'm having to have fucking conversation with these people in the comments. You know how time consuming that is? Like,
Or-
so time, just get somebody to do it for you. Well, that means I have to trust somebody to live in my account, which no, I'm not at that point yet.
Yeah.
Look, lads, I think the wisdom in this is
Roll on.
opportunity cost is a real thing. Focus on the thing that moves the needle. And if you're a creator and you make videos, make better videos. If you're an entrepreneur, stop commenting in engagement pods. Just go build a better business that does better products and services for your
actual
customers.
value instead of having to boost it with inflated nonsense, please.
What's the best time to post a video? Once you've made the video.
Yes.
Boom. Right, chaps. Awesome conversation. I'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.